WPPMLP Philadelphia.
Show live on WPPM FM 106.5 Philadelphia. I'm your host and the world's #1 diversity recruiter, Kenneth L. Johnson, and I've been waiting a long time to bring you the Career Seekers team. Tiffany Southerland, career coach. Alberta Bertolino, recruitment coach. Videographer Will Martin, and together we are your #1 source for career and job search information. We'll be back after the break.
The Career Seekers Show on WPPM FM Philadelphia. Insightful advice for those seeking more than just a job, but a career from the nation's top diversity recruiter, Kenneth L. Johnson. Whether you're starting your career, changing careers, or looking for that next great opportunity, the Career Seekers Show provides a virtual GPS that delivers real career advice that leads you to your destination.
It's the Career Seekers Show live on WPPM LP Philadelphia 106.5. We do this every Wednesday from 4 to 5. Wow, what a day today. We got a big lineup today, ladies and gentlemen. But before I even get into that, today in studio, Tiffany Southerland.
Hello, hello.
Alberta Bertolino.
Hey, Seekers.
Now, AB, I'm going to jump right into this right now because I do not want to forget about this. So usually I eat lunch at about 12 noon. Mm-hmm. But today, I had to tune in and hear our dear friend and colleague, Jody Brockington.
Yep.
And Tiffany Southerland on the National Urban League UL Jobs Network Digital Career Success Series.
Sweet.
Locking in. Tiffany was giving that freshman 15 advice. Tiff was really good.
Oh my gosh, it was a great experience, a lot of great questions. It was great to be a part of the National Urban Leagues and their participation with Fannie Mae in trying to get information out there about the internship program that Fannie Mae has started and wants to get more interest and applications in. And I had some really great questions from people across the career spectrum, but a lot of students just trying to really understand how to maximize getting an internship and making it happen. So
love it.
It was great, man.
It was great. You were great. I tuned in.
Thank you.
Ton of questions answered by Tiffany and Jody, so it was a good look. They gave a shout out to the Career Seekers team and the Philly Cam family at 106.5. So that's what we do. We take this on a national stage and do what we do. All right, so everything is good and everything
now
is
it's
really
better.
great. Yes, now it's definitely better. Now it's definitely
Thanks,
better. So listen, Tiff, so I was locked in, but there were some things, and I wanted to bring this up for a particular reason, because today we have 3 students from the University of Pennsylvania coming out to hang out with our special guest today, Mr. Torin Ellis. Mm-hmm. So if there was something, maybe 2 items that you wanted people to take away from your DCSS today, what would that be?
I would say staying encouraged because it is the job hunt process, whether you are looking for an internship or whether you're looking to change careers, can be very daunting. And if you let your first no or your first lack of response be the way that you dictate the way you feel about the process, you'll never get to that next opportunity. And the second thing I think is knowing the power of your brand, because your brand starts the minute your online footprint starts the minute you set up a social media account in any way, shape, or form. Mm-hmm. So being very mindful of what that brand looks like and being intentional about how you present that online, and I think those are the two things that I hope people take away from it,
or took away from that.
Took away from it.
Yeah, so AB, you got some big things going on with the inclusion hack.
Yeah, that's right.
So that's going to be a good look.
Next Wednesday, November 1st, this is another reminder, we're doing a reverse job fair for people of color and women in technology. With November, you can look it up at inclusionhack.com. We have a lot of nice nice sized technology companies here in the city that are participating. Ask Mentor Enterprise, Chariot Solutions, Delphic Digital, Grayson River, Linode, Philadelphia Works, Prompt Works, Rogue Studios. Thank you all for your sponsorship and participation. It's going to run from 12 to 7 in University City, 3711 Market Street, which is the Quorum at Science Center, Suite 800. There's going to be a workshop for candidates. There's going to be a panel for employers about how to diversify your workforce. Candidate-employer conversations, which is going to include the candidates who are going to be seated, and the employers are going to walk around and talk to you. So it's kind of reverse, like I mentioned. And then we're going to have post-job or showcase. We're calling it a showcase networking, which will be right downstairs at the Han Dynasty. So we're still accepting.
See, I got excited about the food.
Yeah, you
That's
did.
not
So
right.
you're
That's not even right.
okay. You're definitely a foodie, but you're a techie. So
I'm greedy
okay.
and I'm a
Okay.
techie, but
But so we're still looking for candidates. Anyone 5 years and under, even if you're getting ready to certify, we still want you to come out, meet the employers. If you're 5 years and over, that's okay too. There's plenty of positions. Go on inclusionhack.com. There are the employers listed and the particular positions that we have available, the different skill sets. We want you there.
sounds
Somehow.
like a great opportunity.
That's going to be exceptional. That's
It's gonna
November
be.
1st, correct?
Yes, that's next Wednesday.
Love it, the item. So let's just get to it. I'm really excited today, ladies and gentlemen, because man, I have a friend here in the studio today, but he's an distinguished and accomplished friend, and he was polite enough to come up from the land of the Terrapin, I believe. Shout out to everybody in College Park, Maryland. Let's just do that. But ladies and gentlemen, we have author of Rip the Resume, the winner of the Top Recruiter, Reign of the Bosses series, Mr. Torin Ellis. Torin Ellis, what's really good?
So, I appreciate you for allowing me to get in your sandbox and play with your people.
Oh, love it. Thank you very much.
We don't throw that sand around. We're going to have a good time this evening. So I appreciate you. AB, how are you?
I'm doing well. I'm so excited to meet you. A couple weeks ago, Kenneth mentioned you as one of the people that he follows for information. So when I saw that you were going to be on here, I'm just so excited.
Wise man, and I get to learn. I love the hacking that you're going to do on November 1st.
November 1st,
That's
absolutely.
awesome.
Yeah, can't wait.
Tiff, how are you?
I'm doing well.
It's all right. First time. Can I call you Tiff?
Yes, you are
Hey,
family. You are family. I appreciate you for asking.
Yeah.
I asked her that after our second conversation. I'm like, is it okay that I call you Tiff?
But you know what though? You guys asked though. There are some people who be like, hi, I'm Tiffany. Oh, hey Tiff. I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. We don't know each other that well yet.
Because I may move back and forth, and I want to make sure that
I
I'm
appreciate
respectful.
that.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Thank you for allowing me in the sandbox.
Thank you.
Look, we really appreciate you being here. Our second segment, we will have 3 students from the University of Pennsylvania come through, and they're going to rip the resume with Torin Ellis. So what's going on in your world? Talk to me. What you been up to?
So, we got so many things that we can talk about. If you follow me online, you know that I am absolutely and unapologetically committed to diversity.
Yes.
I love how you do the intro. You say the number one diversity
Please believe it.
in
Yes.
the world is
Trust and
WORLD.
believe.
Yes.
I love that. And
You know
so,
what we do.
as the number 2 individual, in the world, I love to make sure that people understand that I am absolutely unapologetic about diversity and inclusion. So I'm doing a variety of interesting and engaging things around diversity. if you will.
That's the platform we connected on.
Yeah.
You were doing what you do, and I noticed, and I was doing what I do, and you noticed,
Yeah.
and it just kind of came together. I think I will commend you for being the one to make the reach. I believe you reached out like, look, bro, let's talk.
Well, I think so many people hide behind keyboards and social media
Yeah, we talk about
and
that all the
email.
time.
And so every once in a while, you just got to get aggressive and you got to make the phone call.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, I cannot operate in a way that I'm telling candidates to operate, and I'm unwilling to do that. And so it's not fair for me to have someone like you and so many other incredible resources in my network to not pick up the phone.
Sure.
Extend an introduction, get that energy moving, so I had to do that. It only makes sense.
I was sharing with someone after the event we did last week at the University of Pennsylvania for Fannie Mae. I was sharing that, we raffled off the opportunity for 2 individuals to come here and meet you, right? And I hadn't spoken to you yet. But I think as soon as I got home, I shot you a text or an email, I can't remember, but you were right back at me like, let's do it. And just kind of knowing the type of person you are,
I knew that wouldn't be a problem because you're always out here supporting and helping people. So with that being said, what's on your schedule? I know you're a busy guy. What you got going on? Like what's happening?
Yeah, so December 7th, I actually have a bomb conversation coming up with 3 venture capitalists from across the United States. And for a lot of people, typically when you get the VCs in the room, you want to talk about how to make money or how to get funding, if you will, or the steps that you need to be from your MVP to Series A, Series B. Nah, man, we're going to take these VCs and we're going to put them to the test around why white men have failed to invest in minorities and others over the past 20, 30 years. And we'll allow that to be the foundation of the conversation because we understand that if they invest and we can start to talk about diversity from the moment you start writing checks, then you can help that founder understand that diversity is important in building it and baking it into the culture of the organization. So I want to take VCs and I'm going to put them in front of, we had almost 2,000 people registered for the webinar back in September. It was the first one out.
Okay.
We expect 3,200 people or so to register for this one. And then
now help me out. Is that Teamable platform?
That's the
you're working?
Teamable platform.
Yeah.
Okay, so we got crazy sponsors behind us. Because we're doing things differently as a recruiter. Sure, I enjoy doing recruitment, but more importantly, I enjoy disseminating information and making sure that people have what they need to win in these conversations. So that's what's next.
Love it. That's going to be a good look. Tell me a little more about that relationship with Teamable that you have going on, because I believe you had an event where you were interviewing, I want to say the Director of Diversity for the Atlanta Hawks, am I correct?
Nzinga Shaw.
Yes.
Nzinga Shaw, the first Chief Diversity Officer for a team in the NBA. Mm-hmm. And she actually was the first in the NBA overall. The NBA itself got their diversity officer about 6 months later.
Wow.
Yeah. So I had a conversation back in September with Nzinga Shaw, CDO for the Atlanta Hawks, Amir Ashkenazi, who's the founder of Uncommon out in San Francisco. He sold 2 companies, one for $400 million, the other one for $600 million. So I roll with some killers. I make sure that I keep good people around me, people that understand what it is that they're doing. And so when we did that conversation, it set the tone for how we plan to approach 2018. And what I plan to make sure people understand, AB, is that if you talk about D&I, we're really talking about people.
Right.
Forget all of the metrics.
Yeah.
Forget all of the processes. Forget all of the buzzwords. Forget your formulas, your slide decks. Forget your white papers. At the core of all of it are people.
Right.
And I think too often we forget when we are making these decisions, whatever they are, when we're plussing and minusing on these decisions, we're forgetting that we're talking about people. So that conversation and every conversation for me is about people.
Right.
Can I ask you a question on that? Because that is the same way that when I think about diversity, and one of the frustrations that I have with the lack of diversity in a lot of spaces that have been focusing, quote unquote, on D&I, it is that we stay focused on the metrics and we forget about the relationships with from person to person. So when you're thinking about, like, how do you help people shift from thinking about the metrics or this big picture thing to getting to recognize the people that are involved on both sides of this diversity and inclusion conversation?
So Tiffany, one of the things that I do is I try to make sure that people understand that diversity is a lot more than just what they think. The media has portrayed diversity as being something synonymous with being an African American or black, a person of color. They've allowed that to become the de facto definition of what diversity is. Diversity is your ideas. Diversity are your products and your services. Diversity is the geographic landscape in which you perform the work that you do. Diversity is the talent that's inside of your organization. And so once again, when it comes to setting the stage, the foundation, when I go inside of these organizations and do strategy work, which is what I do much of now. When I go in and do strategy work, the first thing that I ask for is I need to speak to the leadership, and I want to see 2 things. I want to see their meeting schedule, like pull out your planner, pull out your cell phone. I want to see your calendar. I want to see what meetings you've done over the last 6 to 12 months. And then I'm going to look at your travel schedule. Show me your receipts. What conferences have you been to? What HBCs have you been to? What events have you been to? And when we talk about those two things right there at the leadership level, I always use that as, I understand that you're important. And I see a couple of golf events. See a couple of big time meetings with other CEOs that are also struggling with diversity. So we can probably take some time out of one or two of those meetings. You can send somebody else to sign that deal. But I need to see you at a conference, at an event, at an HBCU.
You know,
I need to see you, Ken,
yes,
allowing somebody to come in your office. I want people in the building to see that folks from the Urban League or from the NAACP or from an HBCU or a Ken Johnson or a Torin Ellis or an AB or a Tiffany. I want them to see them being escorted through the corridors to the office of a CEO, and they say, well, wow, who is that?
You know, I love that you bring that point up, because I think one of the things we did recently was we did a live remote. We did our show live from the National Black MBA Conference.
Yeah.
And it was a commitment to kind of letting people know that this exists and this is going on, but also just to show the importance of what it is that they're accomplishing. And I think their motto this year was power, leadership, performance, and power.
Yep.
And it was all about, what can people at the higher levels do to kind of bring other people through and make your organization a little more powerful in their mission, in their efforts to support diversity and inclusion primarily. And I just thought it was just such an interesting approach, and the interesting conversations that were taking place there really needed to be heard by the masses. And so for us to go and kind of sit there and interview some people that were speakers on that particular platform, I just thought it was an excellent opportunity.
Let me tell you, I know that you have a lot of individuals listening right now that are in the HR space. In Alberta right now, in Amsterdam, I believe it is, HR Tech World is happening right now.
Nice.
One of the biggest conferences for people that are in the HR space as it relates to technology
and
that makes it
innovation,
efficient and effective for them to do the work that they do. I talked to two powerful people in London and in Ireland, and they are on my behalf talking to the organizer of that event.
Excellent.
So that next year we can do exactly what you just said. We can broadcast live from the HR Tech World event as it relates to diversity solutions, diversity technology, diversity approaches by some of the organizations that are there. We want to be able to show, because there's a lot of people that can't afford to fly to Amsterdam for whatever reason. But you need to know, if you're in this space, what's going on and what's being talked about.
Sure.
So you're absolutely right. I've always said it, man. If you want people to win, then you have to give them an experience and some level of exposure.
Yes.
Put the information in front of them, provide them with a platform for the experience, and get out of my way, and I'll do the rest.
You know, you said something really interesting about, at the top of an organization, what are you guys doing? What's your schedule look like? So I was speaking to a Silicon Valley heavyweight, reached out to me after reading an article that I had penned for Forbes, right? So she reached out and she said, all right, I'm from XYZ company. I'm interested in having a conversation with you. So really, I wanted to kind of know about her background, right? So we went through her background, and she had been at this company prior and left because she felt undervalued and she didn't feel they were supporting diversity. She said she was one of 5 African-American women. I'm sorry, one of 5 women of color in the organization. So she left. But they called her back. I'm not sure what the time lapse was between calling her back, but they called her back and asked her to come back on board and lead diversity and inclusion for them. And Torin, she asked them one question: what have you done since I left? And she said she only wanted to hear one answer, which was the truth. They said nothing. And she said, okay, now we got a platform to work on, because we need to build it. And that, she was fine with that. She said if they would have told her, well, we went here, and she wouldn't have been able to prove that, like you were saying, but if they would have told her, we went here, we've done this, we put this in place, she would have known that it was just a piecemeal effort. But when you bring her back at her number, probably, you're making a commitment to getting better. And a huge organization. But that's the story. You know, what are the people at the higher levels doing to support D&I? So I understood you. I understood you. Definitely. All right, man, outstanding. Torin Ellis, everybody. If you have questions, anything, hit us up at U.S. Career Seekers. You can hit Alberta Bertolino up at Alberta Recruits, Tiffany Southerland up at Tiff South, Torin Ellis up at Torin Ellis. It's the Career Seeker team. We do this every Wednesday from 4 to 5 live on WPPM 106.5 FM in Philly. Alberta, Tiff, Torin is a recruiter by nature. So Alberta, I know you had called me earlier, and you had some people that might have had some questions regarding some things. I don't know if you brought any with you.
No, she didn't get a chance to record anything. So I work with a young lady that's a veteran. Her husband is active duty military, and so we talk every week about when I do the show and who's going to be on the show. And I mentioned you, and we were going through your materials, and there's nothing specific to veterans. So she was wondering, do you tie that in? But I know you were just saying earlier you're getting away from the demographic around diversity and inclusion because it's so much more. So do you ever tie that in? Do you have any experience with that? And in particular to the younger millennial veterans that are just coming out?
Yeah, so the oldest millennial right now is about 38. And so I always like to kind of keep that in perspective when we say the young, because we sometimes throw the word millennial out and then we're thinking about people that are in their early 20s. But we forget that, the oldest millennial right now is actually 38 years old. And
Yeah,
so
we get a lecture on millennials
every
probably about weekly.
Here
on the Career Seeker Show.
Absolutely. And so as it relates to veterans, one of the things that I think is extremely important is that, they make sure that they are placing themselves in front of the opportunity. And so for me, I'm always looking for a variety of talented individuals for the assignments and the engagements that I work. And so I'm not sure exactly what her question is, if you will.
So a lot of around your materials are about networking and making sure you make the right contacts.
Absolutely.
And her point was that how do you do that if you've only ever just dealt with, say she's Navy,
Sure.
only your Navy people.
Yeah.
And I tried to make the connection for her that you find other Navy people that have been out and are successful, and that starts your network.
Absolutely.
But then I said I was going to ask you too, but yeah.
So great question, and in terms of how do you do that 2020-60 job plan, 2020-60 search plan, 20% of your time on job boards, 20% of your time, working social media, and 60% of your time shaking hands, kissing babies, as they say, blocking and tackling, going to meetups, going to various conferences, different events that are happening in your city or region. Absolutely. You have to get around. So share with your friend. And this is really universal for anyone. I would say anyone today should be exercising a 2020-60 job search strategy, because sitting in front of a computer and spending hours on a job board is not necessarily the best use of your time. It depletes your energy. It drains your mental focus, if you will. You kind of get frustrated and stalled. So, 20% of your time on job boards, 20% of your time doing social media, going on Twitter, using hashtags, going on Facebook and Instagram, using hashtags. We meet new people through the use of hashtags, if you will. We start up a conversation, put a nice little comment under someone's picture. You never know where that commenting will go on an Instagram or a Twitter or a LinkedIn or whatever it is. And then, of course, we need to get out and meet people like Tiffany and Alberta and Ken and so many other good people. You cannot sit behind a keyboard. So 2020, 60.
I love it.
Thank you. She's going to love that.
That's a really great, that's like tangible, right? Because if you think about how you spend your time, if you literally break down your time in a day, then you can actually say, okay, you know what? I've spent too much time doing this job, on the job boards today. And I think a lot of people are just not as comfortable just meeting people and going out to meet people. But the only way you get comfortable doing that is by actually doing it. And there's a lot of resources online. If you need to learn how to initiate a conversation, you can do that. But like you said, you just have to get out and start meeting people, because that's how the relationships get built.
Absolutely. Yeah. Network.
Speaking of relationship building, Torin, I have a question for you now that you're here, because Tiffany was just speaking about, networking. So it's so common for us to network on platforms like LinkedIn. So we were having a discussion early in the Career Seekers Show history about LinkedIn. So my two colleagues and co-hosts, they will not accept anyone's invite if they do not have a photo on LinkedIn. Do you have any LinkedIn rules that apply to you, or any social media rules that you adhere to in regards to networking?
Yeah, I try to look, when a person reaches out to me, and it's a little bit different for me, probably a little bit different for you all as well, because I'm on a national radio show and I get or receive a ton of invitations. I've had to kind of change it a little bit. So I always look at a person's social media footprint. If a request comes through on LinkedIn, I try to look at some of the recent items that they've posted or commented on. I try to look at their, professional portfolio, if you will. I go find them on Facebook or Twitter, and I look at what type of activity is taking place.
So you approach it like a recruiter. Indeed.
Right,
You really approach it like you were recruiting for an open rec.
Well, it just, listen, for a couple of reasons. Number one, if a person reaches out to me on LinkedIn, I respond to 90% of the requests that I receive with a personal thank you.
Yes.
So if I'm going to invest the time in drafting a personal thank you, then I want it to be somebody that I truly want to have inside of my network.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Indeed.
So I need to make two comments. One, I did send you a connection request, and for whatever reason, I did it from my phone. It didn't allow me to put a personal note.
Yeah.
And I typically do that, so I apologize. So
Don't worry.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
The second thing, to our listeners, LinkedIn is not a dating platform. Do
Yes.
not send. Did you see that?
I did see that.
I
You want to share? You want to share with the listeners what happened?
Yeah, I got a request last week from this I think it was a little aggressive, about telling me what he thought I looked like and how he wanted to date me, and hope I wasn't offended, and please reach back to him. Oh my goodness, no.
It's kind of when you throw the "I hope you're not offended" in, you probably
You
are
know
offending
I'm
someone.
gonna be. I'm not really offended, but no, that's not what this platform is about.
Yeah, so I mean, and my only other rule as it relates to connecting on social media is I really don't, I don't really play a whole lot of games. I'm a pretty serious person with my time.
Sure.
And so if for instance, you might comment on something that I've written, or I might comment on something that you've written or posted. And as the young people say, if you come for me, I'm gonna give you.
I'm gonna come back.
I'm gonna give you two. No, I'm gonna give you two bites at the apple. If you say something that's, plausible, thoughtful, intelligent, then I may respond to that, with some sort of appreciation, if you will, and maybe try to extend the conversation. But if you come at me sideways,
Right.
and then I come back to you professionally, and then you come back at me again, then I'm automatically blocking.
Yes.
Right.
I'm deleting,
Right.
because I don't need that energy in my network.
Not at all.
I have a
No.
really big network.
You didn't respond
So-
back to me. I asked if you blocked the person.
Yeah, I did. I'm
Okay.
sorry. Yes,
Yeah.
you're right.
Sorry, I
You're
didn't
right.
No, that's what it
Yeah,
is.
yeah.
So
No,
I mean,
yeah.
I only give you two bites at the apple. I'm trying to be
You
a
don't
bit
even
more.
give him three. You
Yeah,
give
well,
him two.
I'm just being a bit more gracious than the Most High.
Yeah,
we
yeah.
messed around in the Adam and they did one bite, and they got in trouble. I'm gonna give you two bites, and then after that, I'm shutting it down.
And then that shows you so much, though, because if someone responds to you with kindness and your response is to come back at them crazy again,
Yeah.
that's just not. Then that just tells you as much as you need to know in that moment.
Exactly.
Yeah. And the reason why, again, I've lessened it. I have some recruiting friends who will not accept people that are outside of their sphere
I
or
have
their
friends like that
sandbox.
too.
They're
Yeah.
very tight about who
Absolutely,
they want in
yeah.
their network.
See,
Yeah.
that,
I'm a
that
little-
defeats
I'm a
the
bit more
purpose to me.
open.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, again, I understand it because they intimately know their network.
Okay.
When a job order comes through, requisition comes through, they can immediately get in a protected environment. They can disseminate that information, and they can pull out what needs to be pulled out in terms of talent, or they can find talent, resources, whatever the case may be. So they're not somebody that's going through 10,000 connections,
Yes, I
because
got you.
LinkedIn is losing a little bit right now. We won't get into that discussion unless you'd like to, but because they're losing, they are changing the way that recruiters can manipulate and use the information. Alberta is in my network. Tiffany is in my network. Yet if I want to search and find either of them, for the most part, I almost have to pay, because LinkedIn is restricting how I can find Alberta and Tiffany. And so I understand why some recruiters are limiting individuals in their network.
Wow, interesting. It's the Career Seeker Show, WPPMLP Philadelphia. We're going to take a brief break, and then we'll be back with Torin Ellis. Shout out to Tanika Hardy, Bonnie Poole Smith.
Tanika Hardy!
Yes. Scott McLeod, Sonia Cleveland. We appreciate y'all for checking into the Career Seeker Show. We do it every Wednesday, 4 to 5, WPPMLP. We'll be back. Let's go.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
All right, I don't see any young students in here. So if they're not here, we're gonna keep going.